Hello, we are live. And so this is impromptu, I suppose, but I just wanted to do this as a live recording because earlier today I had a conversation with Simon Webb again. The intention had been to record our conversation like we did before and then upload it for you guys to watch. Unfortunately, because of an issue on my end, Simon's audio did not come through at all, so we can't use that. And I was rather upset about it because the conversation I think was quite valuable and it would have been good for everyone to have. And we ended up agreeing on much more than we disagreed. It was very productive. And I don't want to just repeat that conversation with Simon directly because that would just be inauthentic. We've already shared our views between each other on this topic. There's less of a point in going over it again. But I wanted to put something out there to YouTube about the topic of race and heritage. Hey Vaughn, welcome. Um, so yeah, I wanted to talk a bit and at least get some of my thoughts out there about race and heritage and history. Partly because I need to get better at doing what Simon himself does in having informal chats with his audience. So the three questions we were trying to go over in our discussion was: is biological race an essential characteristic of English heritage? The second was, what is English heritage? What is Englishness? And the third question was, is English heritage under attack? Also, hello, Redgingadorix Wolf. Welcome. So I'll try to give my answers to these questions as best I can. So the questions being, let's start with, is biological race an essential component of heritage? And I don't want to talk about my own heritage particularly, but people in the comment section of last video seemed interested in it. So I was raised by one South Asian parent and a white British parent. And as far as we know, it's like pure ancestry on each side. So pure Tamil ancestry on one side from Tamil from Sri Lanka, and pure English, so presumably Anglo-Saxon, although we haven't had our DNA tested, so we don't know. But anyway, so that's my ethnic ancestry. I grew up, however, in just an English cultural environment. My home was very English. I never picked up that much Tamilness. So I have my British flag here, but I don't particularly identify as British. I identify as English because my culture is not equal parts Welsh, Northern Irish, and Scottish. My culture is English because I grew up in England. So that's my view on it. And I always grew up with people assuming I would be Tamil when I'm not, which is understandable with Tamil ancestry. But I always found it weird when people assumed I'd have a great interest in Tamil culture and such when I never have really. I'm English and I like English culture and English history and English heritage. Not that I have some particular issue with Sri Lankan culture and heritage. It's just not mine. It's not something I relate to. It's not something I've learned that much about or have such an interest in. So I've always come from that perspective where people expected, because of my biological race, for me to have some connection to Tamil heritage, which I never felt. And by contrast, I felt a great deal of connection to English heritage. Now, granted, some people would say I do have a biological connection to English heritage through my father's line. But my point is, I don't think that the characteristics that make somebody English are essentially tied to one's biological race. I think that people, hey Pale, welcome. To those who have recently joined, oh wow, we have more people joining. This is dramatic. I imagine these may be people from the Gothic server or other servers. I'm just having a free flowing to the camera discussion about race and heritage. So yeah, so I've not found that there are any significant cultural traits that necessarily correspond with one's race and one's ethnicity. And then, but Simon raised the decent point that people who are raised, say, with dual heritage in the UK are going to have somewhat of a different, some degree of a different identity. And I said in response that identity, just because one has an additional ethnic identity, does not mean that their English identity is fractured or less strong. And I think that's an entirely reasonable way of viewing it. I don't think that somebody having a second heritage to them means that they're going to value English heritage any less. The second question, so what actually is English heritage, is an interesting question. For me, the things that make English heritage are the cultural traditions that, in a continuous chain, have affected present day English people. And I specify English because there are some things which will affect all Anglophones, like Americans will have some influence because of the Old English and Middle English poetic traditions and such lot, but we in England don't. So when I say English heritage, I mean how the rhythms and styles of Old English poetry are recognizable to modern English speakers today. I'm talking about our regular cultural mores, the whole, you know, stereotypical but very much real English cottage with gnomes, and we eat tea and such like this. These are the things that make us English as a people, and as distinct from Americans or Australians or anything like this. I don't see this heritage as inherently linked to skin color or biological race. I think a baby to Chinese parents, brought here and raised in the UK by English parents, is going to be completely English. But by contrast, an English baby taken and raised in China is not going to be English. A baby with English parents, say, raised in China, is not going to be English. That baby is going to be Chinese. And we talked about how immigrant communities can sometimes isolate from broader society and have these little enclaves in which children are raised with more of an immigrant culture. And this is true. And for immigrants for whom that is the case, I would say that those immigrants aren't really English. A person who, let's say, goes to a Gujarati speaking school, hypothetically, and only has Gujarati friends, only spends time with Gujarati people within the UK, to me, that person is Gujarati, not really English, even though they've spent their time growing up in the UK. Now, of course, they can be British, and I have no issue with them being involved in British society, but as a term, I would not consider them to have English heritage in the same way. But again, a child maybe with Gujarati parents who went to English or mixed schools and um, learns about English history and has English friends, ties to English culture, is going to be English just as much as I may be. Get your message. And the last point we talked about was whether English heritage is under attack. And I think that English heritage is at risk, but I don't think it's at risk from ethnic minorities coming in and talking about it, or I don't think it's at risk from critical race theory or anything like this. I think, frankly, English heritage is a risk because people just can't be bothered. Like, I've experienced this where nobody cares about medieval English literature, nobody cares about Old English, or even if you call it Anglo-Saxon, people don't really care that much about it. Few people will even read a translation of Beowulf or of Bede's ecclesiastical history of the English people. And so the parts of English heritage that I'm very much interested in, the medieval literature and our history, people aren't studying them as much anymore. And maybe there's various reasons for that, but I certainly don't think it's because of immigrants or coming in or people growing up with different ethnic allegiances within the UK. So those were those are the three topics that we had talked about, Simon and I. We had talked about is whiteness or is biological race essential to English heritage? I think quite firmly that that's a no. There's nothing inherently, there's no biological thing to being English that matters particularly, in my opinion. What is English heritage? I think it's those cultural mores that define what being English is. And thirdly, I think British heritage or English heritage is under attack, or is not under attack, I should say, is it's fading and people aren't studying it and maintaining its heritage as much. But I don't think this is because of external factors or immigrants or anything like this. I think this is simply a factor of times moving on, modernization. People are much more interested in American media and culture than they are in English media and culture and history. So people aren't as interested, and so people aren't reading these old texts, and English heritage therefore is dying out. So that's, I guess, in 10 minutes, my attempt at summarizing what I put forward in the discussion with Simon, because unfortunately the audio didn't work. But one thing we are going to do, Simon and I, is we're going to be reading through an introduction to critical race theory, and we are going to be discussing this book in the coming weeks, chapter by chapter, because I think it's really important for us to be talking about actual critical race stuff. So hopefully we'll have those videos up in coming weeks. Thank you for the people. I can see 5 people watching presently, and for the 4 likes. Really appreciate it. Hope you all have a good